Hi, I'm Megan, welcome to my channel, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you how to make a couple different types of pot holders. So the first one we're going to make is a square pot holder with rounded corners and a pocket. And then the next one we're going to make is a long pot holder with 2 pockets. And then we're also going to make a mini pot holder with 2 pockets. For this project you are going to need some quilting cotton. I used scraps from previous projects. Then you're going to need some Wrap and Zap batting. This batting is meant to handle being heated. And then you'll also need some 1/2 inch wide double fold binding in a coordinating color. Cut out all of your pieces. Here are the pieces for this single pocket pot holder and the measurements. The pieces for the double pocket pot holder and the measurements. And the pieces for the mini double pocket pot holder and the measurements. We're going to start by quilting our pot holder. We're going to make a batting sandwich, 1 cotton square wrong side up, then 2 squares of batting, and then another cotton square right side up. We have 4 layers here. It's a batting sandwich, and I'm just going to use a couple clips to hold them together. Then I'm going to take a glass, any glass will work, and a washable marker, and I'm going to line up the glass in the corner and trace around it like this. That's going to give me a nice rounded edge. I'm going to cut those corners off. Now for the pocket, we are going to do 1 cotton rectangle, wrong side up, 1 piece of batting, and then the other cotton rectangle, right side up. Then we are going to only round 2 corners. Cut those off. This is how the pocket will sit on top of the pot holder. But we're going to add some quilting, as I said before. So I'm going to draw intersecting diagonal lines 2 inches apart, like so. You could make straight lines, you don't have to intersect, you could just do a singular X. You could do 0 quilting on this project. It's really whatever you want to do, but once I've drawn all my lines, here's what that will look like. Then we're going to move on to the double pocket pot holder. So again, we have our batting sandwiched the same way as we did with the single pocket pot holder. And the pockets are sandwiched the same way, and we are going to curve the corners the exact same way. And then I'm going to quilt this again with intersecting diagonal lines 2 inches apart. So I'm going to draw my lines. And here's how the pockets are going to sit. And then onto the mini double pocket pot holder. We're going to make our batting sandwiches the same way. Round the corners with the glass the same way. When we go to quilt this, I'm just going to sew an X on the main piece and an X on each of the pocket pieces, since it's such a small surface area to work with. And if you are deciding to quilt your pot holders like me, go ahead and do that now by sewing along the lines with your sewing machine. Once you're done quilting all your pieces, your fabric and your batting may have shifted, so just take a moment and try to even everything back out with your scissors. That's what I'm doing here. We are going to go in and bind our pocket along the edge now. I want my pocket to contrast with the pot holder. So I'm going to lay this brown side up, cut a length of binding, just a little bit longer than the length of the pocket. This is the right side of my pocket, and we are going to open the binding. Double fold binding has 1 fold that is a little bit longer than the other side. We want to take the shorter fold and line its raw edge up with the raw edge of the pocket like this. And we are going to stitch in this line all the way to the end. Now our binding is attached to the pocket. We're going to give this a good press out, flip it over. You can see here we have the longer fold on this side of the pocket. And we are going to fold everything over like this, tucking in our raw edge. And we are going to flip it back over and stitch in the ditch here from one end to the other. And that's going to catch the binding on the other side. Here's what this looks like. Trim off the ends so it's nice and even. Here's what it's going to look like with double pockets. It is the exact same concept. Okay, now we're going to bind the edge all the way around. I'm just going to use a couple of clips to help hold everything together. We are going to start out by opening our binding. Again, we are going to line up the short fold raw edge with the raw edge of the pot holder like this, but we are going to fold over this end of the binding about an inch. That's because once we sew all the way around, we're going to overlap the very end of the binding like this. So when we fold everything over to the other side, we have a finished edge here. All right, so fold over that inch and start sewing along all the way around, paying special attention to the corners. And then once you get to the end here, I had a little bit of extra binding, so I'm just going to trim that down to about an inch. And we do the same thing with the double pocket pot holders. We just have 2 pockets to worry about instead of 1. But it's the same technique all the way around. Okay, so now we're just going to take our scissors, and anywhere that is a little too bulky or uneven, we are going to give the seam allowance a trim. Right here where we folded over that inch of binding, we are just going to cut a wedge out of the binding. So when we turn it over to the other side of the pot holder, it will tuck in easier and line up nicely. Give a good press. And if it's not folding over nicely, you can just trim the seam allowance down a little bit. If you want, use some clips to hold the binding in place. And then I'm going to hand bind this side of the pot holder. Start with matching thread on your needle, attach it to the pot holder, tucking it into the seam allowance, and then we are going to make about a 1/4 inch stitch into the folded edge of the binding. Pull through, and then we're going to start our next stitch right underneath where the needle came out of the binding and make about a 1/4 inch stitch into the pot holder. Then repeat right where we exited the pot holder. We are going to go into the binding, and then just keep repeating all the way around. Once you get to the end, we're going to make a couple of tiny stitches and bury the thread in between the layers of the fabric. Pull out the thread and trim it like this to finish off our binding. And here you are, the pot holders are finished. What do you guys think? And that's it. That's how you can make your own pot holder set. Really pleased with how they turned out. They make a great gift, which is actually what I made these for. I've actually made these pot holders for myself in a different print. These match my aprons that I've made in the past. Alright friends, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to like this video so I know to make more videos like this one in the future. And if you want to keep up on my future videos, please be sure to subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one.